Good morning. I was just behind the scenes going like this with my hair, fluffing it up because all of a sudden it was looking flat and now it looks like I'm a scarecrow. But hey, who cares? It's funny, isn't it? Because we're in between seasons now. So I've just blow dried my hair and put a little bit of fresh serum on. But it's like my hair knows that it's no longer summer and autumn's approaching, and it knows that there's extra humidity in the room. Got to do something about that. But anyway, we're not talking about my hair today. We're talking about who am I? What am I? What should I be doing? Why am I here? So we're really looking at the core purpose of, I guess, our existence. And I'm pretty sure it's something that a lot of people are thinking about right now, because obviously there's lots of people making comments in the media about, how we should be feeling about certain things and so on and so forth. So anyway, before I bring on my guest today, which is Rosanna Rays, she's been on quite a few times. I think 2, 3. Is it 3 or 4, Rosanna? Show me fingers. I think 3. So she's in the back. She's just looking lovely. She's got beautiful flowers in the background. She's got a lovely, lovely set today, I have to say. She's going to come on in a second. We're going to have a good old chat. But we've got loads of people watching already. We've got some comments coming in. So T-Duck, thank you for joining us, T-Duck. It's been a while. Who am I? What am I? What should I be doing? We've got Owen saying, hey, T-Duck. Hey, Owen. Why am I here? To tell you all, click the like button. Well, that's a good. Thank you so much. Bob Wenger is saying, enjoy your tea, T-Duck. So we've got a few people here, all just piling in. A lot of them are Carl's crowd from the Good Morning Portugal show. So I must give a bit of kudos to Carl. So Bob's saying, howdy, y'all. And Sarah saying, what am I doing here? Waving her pink hand around. And Sarah is getting some kisses. So please do let us know why you think you're here, who you are and whatnot. And let's just explore this and have a little bit of fun. So anyway, let's bring on Rosanna now. So Rosanna, are you there?
I am definitely here.
How are you, my lovely? And let me just rearrange my hair while you answer. Hang on.
I like it. It's the beach look.
It is. It looks like I've just swam in the Atlantic Ocean. It's true.
Which is quite apt because you're coming from Portugal. So can you swim at this time of year? What's the weather like at the moment?
Do you know what? We were at the Atlantic just yesterday. We live 5 minutes drive, 10 minutes.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky.
The seaside is my happy place.
Oh, it's our happy place too. And so yesterday we took the kids out on this really mega long walk, which is maybe a little bit too long for the kids. We walked up towards the cliffs, along, watching the Atlantic, then down. And there was actually somebody stripped off, just in their bathers, running into the water. We went in, the earliest we've been in is on our daughter's birthday, the 2nd of January, when last birthday this year, she said, Mom, want to go swimming for my birthday? And we were like, okay. But it was really, really nice. It was really great. And we were swimming, just a couple of weeks ago, quite, 2 or 3 times a week. So it's pretty good. But yes, it is a pretty awesome kind of setup we've got. So how are you? And what prompted you with this very deep and searching question for us to explore today?
Well, if you recall the last one that we did together, we ended up just being the two of us, although it wasn't planned to be. And we ended up in this really deep personal chat, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we kind of spoke together and thought that we might do a little bit more of that. So I thought this might be a way to start.
Yeah. How often do you ask yourself those questions? Like, who am I? What am I? What should
I kind of review it. I kind of review it on a sort of month-to-month basis, if I'm honest, because I'm all about transformation. So, I work as hard on myself as I do for my clients, and I'm always changing. So, getting in alignment for me. And when I say alignment, it's about accessing my core authentic truth. And I believe
I like that. Hang on. Let me just write that down. Alignment. That's your core authentic truth. It's funny.
Like who you are. right?
Do you know what? Cool sounded better.
Cool, yes.
I was thinking,
cool,
I was
authentic truth does sound good.
I was thinking like my authentic truth, loads of people would think was totally uncool, but it's your cool.
I'm sure that's not true.
Well, it's funny because I'm going through I don't know if you've seen Vinny, he's been on the show as well. He's a
No,
really good transformation expert, and him and I've worked together many times before. We've known each other well over a decade, and so one of the things I've been asking is like, what is it I do? And I've been really in that question, and I have to say it's bringing up a lot of stuff. Why do we do this? I mean, you've mentioned that like you do it for your clients, but like, when did you start doing it? Presumably you've always been questioning.
Yeah, I think it's part of innately who I am to want to find the truth. I'm a truth seeker, and sort of the truth of the world, how it operates. I mean, I'm really shit at maths and science, but I've researched metaphysics, quantum physics, because I like to know how things work. And part of what drove me to become a transformation coach was the transformation that I procured for myself. And I found that after various incidences of my life completely collapsing in on itself, and getting to rock bottom after my second divorce, I was in the fortunate position to be at rock bottom and ask myself that question, right? Okay, so I am nothing and nobody right now. Everything's been taken away from me. I'm in a hostel, I'm in a B&B, like no job, separated from my kid. Where do I go from here? It was a kind of a sense of the world is my oyster. So if the world is my oyster and I can do anything, I'm damn well going to find out what it is I really want to do and who it is, who it is that I am and what lights me up. And in order to find out what lit me up and what I was going to do, I had to ask the big question: who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? Where am I going? And it was a journey to find inner peace and to finally experience happiness and know what just the joy of being is all about. Other than, I think all of us grow up, and of course we grow up. We grow up thinking,
we can't really help that, can we?
We've got to be this, and we've got to be that, and we have people telling us this is what you should do, right? Fit in the box, conform. And I've always been a bit of a rebel and a non-conformist. So at that point, I was a bit like, I'm going to go all out. I'm going to find out exactly who I am. I want to be able to display that to the world. But I couldn't at the time. I was really inhibited. So it was a very, very long journey. I mean, it's been a 20-year journey. But I don't know, you probably know because you're you. But they recently did some research about, what is the highest vibration that emanates from our bodies. And they discovered that most people think it's love, right? Most people would presume it's love, but it isn't. It's authenticity. So that's what gives us the most power when we present ourselves to the world. And, even communicating with people. We resonate more for the potential people that can resonate with us, because we're being our true authentic self. Then there's also going to be people that dislike us or even hate us, right? Because people are so different. And so when we're moving entirely in, well, as much as we can be on our journey, with who we are innately inside, who we were created to be rather than who we were formed to be, then obviously we have to contend with people not liking us. And then the upside of that is some people will love us.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Like on Friday we were talking about how to pick yourself up after you fall down, and Sarah was talking about her love of arseholes, and she said, I don't mind who you are really, but if you're fake, you and I aren't really going to get on. And sure, if you're an arsehole, I might not like you, but we can talk because there's something that's very truthful and authentic. So I really like what you're saying there. And in actual fact, I think she's coming in actually. She just said, who would we be if we dropped all the labels? Good question. And what others say we are, what we say we are, etc. You know, like there's so much to sort of unpack, isn't there? Got a lot of comments coming in already, loads in fact.
Nice.
Which is great. So where do we start? T-Duck is saying Cole's show is just an opening act to warm folks up for this show. Thank you very much. I don't know if Carl will agree, but I finally found myself after moving to Portugal. Turns out I'd fallen down the back of the sofa all that time. Thank you, Gary. Welcome to the show. I was actually broadcasting from Gary's bar, his man cave, last Monday. So a week ago today, in fact. With a really awful hangover. Robin Johnson is saying good morning. Good morning, Robin. How are you?
Good morning.
You can't get any cooler than Rosanna. Good morning, Portugal. That's Carl upstairs. I am whole, complete, and perfect, except when I don't seem to be. Gary is saying, seriously, I've discovered more about myself and how much more I can be since moving to Portugal. Now, that's an interesting point. You know, when we start to discover who we are, I think there's the opportunity to discover more, isn't there? Like, you know, if we're going with what Sarah's saying, you know, we've got these labels, you know, like one of the things I've been sort of like tussling over a little bit is the sort of, I've got kind of two core roles with my work. And one is like astrology, the other's coaching. And I've been asking, who am I? An astrologer or a coach? An astrologer or a coach? Going around in circles.
An astro coach.
Well, actually, in these all these sort of deliberations and sort of deep dives, I realize I'm actually a channel that uses astrology and coaching. And then, you know, like when you've got like a choice between two labels or three labels, or when you fix yourself in some way, it can get quite limiting because you then need to sort of behave in the way or use the language of that label. And so, you know, even though I've kind of been realizing, well, actually there's something kind of beyond that, like the channel aspect of me, I'm probably not going to say channel too much because again, it's another label. But I mean, labels can also be helpful, can't they? But anyway, sorry, Gary was saying, how much more can I be? A reassessment of what is important in life and what truly matters, along with a whole new spiritual awareness. That's lovely. Susie saying good morning.
Good morning, Susie.
Bob Wenger saying it took me a long time to become me. And with a little tearful face.
I feel that.
Well, it's interesting. You're saying it's been a 20-year journey. I feel I've been looking at it maybe a bit longer. I think not like playing top trumps. I've been looking at it as longer than you because I was thinking 20 years. Wow. I know you're just a bit older than me. So it's like, oh. But
well, I suppose if we're honest, you know, it's from childhood, isn't it? You know, you start asking, you know, do you want to be a fireman? Do you want to be a solicitor? Do you want to be a lawyer? But I mean, what did you want to be? I started focusing in on doing the inner work and gaining that higher perspective of right now, I'm actually going to do it in a really constructive way, in a consistent way, I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. This is where I'm going way, rather than let me try and be what everybody else wants me to be. It's the point at which I came out of that ethos and thought, no, I'm doing it my way.
I think that's really wise. And like Bob with a slightly tearful face. I know that Bob's had some very big changes in his life. And then you were saying, you know, you got to rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that affords, whilst it feels really quite shitty at the time, it does afford you a freedom, doesn't it, to drop everything?
Well, you say shitty, but do you know what? There were elements of it that were shitty, but in some ways I'm quite nostalgic for it because I became exponentially more spiritual, more aware, and it's the one time in my life where spirit, God, higher power, whatever you want to call that energy, was so hot on my back. And you know, I woke up every morning, I'm getting the chills now, with just like goosebumps all over me, and just felt that love, that, do you know what, I got you. And I had some really strange metaphysical experiences as well that kind of just blew my mind and were like real demonstrative examples of I'm here. Like one day I woke up, I had an afternoon nap, which I often did because I was just so depressed. And I woke up because there was something in my sock that was like pinching me,
Yeah.
like pricking me. And I looked in my sock, and tucked in my sock was this blinking white feather.
No way.
Yeah. So it was just crazy shit was happening. So yeah, in some ways it was the most beautiful of experiences, alongside this extreme darkness that was going on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can see why you might be nostalgic for it, because I remember, when you were opening up about how you were living and where you were living, and you were actually talking about having a room with a view, so even though everything had gone really awful, you had this window that, and there are these things that you get very grateful for. I suspect, like, having heard some of your story, that when you did come into that big question of who you are, that you've been hot on that the whole time, whereas I've been in and out, in and out, in and out. Not as determined as you.
I think a big aspect of that was not only who I was, but who was everybody else, and who was this power I was connecting into. And that led into, why am I here? If this power is putting things like feathers in my sock to stop me committing suicide, then there must be a purpose. There must be a reason why I'm here. There must be something for me to do. And I'd always felt like there was something for me to do. And I'd always felt like time was running out, which led me to go down a lot of avenues I shouldn't have, because I'm quite spontaneous, and I'd be like, oh, this is the thing, so I always felt quite driven, but I didn't have the answers. I didn't know where it was that I was going, and I didn't know why I was going, and I didn't know who I was or who I was going to be, or any faith or getting any better either.
Yeah. Well, we've got people joining. Let me just read out some more comments, and I want to deep dive into this a little bit more. So Robin is saying the dislike is dislike because they're threatened by authenticity. So I love that's come in, because you were talking about authenticity being the highest of the high. Sarah Clark is saying, good morning. I'm just starting a journey to becoming who I am. Well, how is it going for you, Sarah? How are you enjoying it? How did you know it was time? Like, I'm really curious. I think that's beautiful. Thunderduck is saying, smash that like button. Thank you. Gary is saying, we're all a work in progress. Definitely. In fact, Carl is doing a little piece later on this week called Woke in Progress, where he's looking at his journey through being woke and not woke and all sorts.
Love it.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Sarah's saying labels can sometimes show people where we are, what we might have that they are looking for, our shingle that we hang. They don't really know what's behind the shingle until they show up. Interesting. I like that. Bob's saying the first time I was introduced to the power of now, I couldn't conceptualize it at all. I'm imagining you've got a different understanding of it now, Bob. And I wonder what your turning point was. Vivian is saying, I feel like I've been so very many people throughout my life, always the same at the core, but at times I didn't recognize myself. At 70, I tell you what, it's really hard to believe that Viv is 70. If you meet her, you'll struggle to believe that. At 70, I'm finding exactly who I am, and I'm good with it. And Robin is saying, I think we all have hit rock bottom to find our way back up. Yeah, I would agree with that. And we find the people who guide us and show us the way. That's beautiful. Enter Rosanna. So where I wanted to go, you were talking about, you got the chance to work out what lights me up. And you got to the core authentic truth of who you are. Like Vivian is saying, she did, always the same at the core, but at times I didn't recognize myself. So like almost like she was the same chocolate bar, but sometimes had a different wrapper. Always the same taste, maybe. I hope you don't mind me comparing you to a lovely chocolate bar, Vivian. Is that the values, do you think, that underpin us? Like, what did you discover about your core values?
What did I discover about my core values? That's a tricky one, because
is it the values? What is it? What is it that's at your core, Rosanna? Is it like for me, like when I think about it, the thing that always gets me, it has to be about truth. And is it freeing? Do I feel trapped? Do I feel free? And do I feel clear? And if I'm not feeling clear or free, or honest or free to be honest, then I really struggle. You know, then that's almost like my go-to place.
Yeah.
Is that a similar thing that you?
I think yes, all those things. But also I think what is really important for me is to recognize that I can be this is going to sound like I'm schizophrenic. I'm many women in one.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I'm changeable. I'm like the sea. I'm like the weather.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I can remember about 40 years ago being in church and crying my eyes out while someone was praying for me. And I was like, I just want to be on an even keel. I just want to be steady. I'm always up and down and really excitable, or I'm down and I'm low. Well, back then anyway. And I just wanted to be somebody who was really, you know, steadfast, always the same. I was looking at these other people going, I want to be like that, you know, and I wasn't. You know, I'm gregarious, I'm lively, I'm a fire sign, and I couldn't embrace who I was. And the lady said to me, if you were steady, you would be a flat line and you'd be dead. That's always stuck with me. Because it was like this permission came over me where it was okay to be whoever I was in that moment. Like being true to myself in that moment means that I am reacting authentically to whatever's happening around me. So if somebody says something that I disagree with or I don't like, I've got the choice to be quiet. And sometimes that is the best course of action. And that's not denying that you dislike it, because it's not agreeing either. But it's also being able to have the voice to speak up about how I'm feeling in that moment. And for me, being my core authentic self is about embodying that, how I'm feeling minute to minute, and also taking control of you know, how I'm feeling, metering how I'm feeling in a kind of holistic, mindful way, rather than having, you know, my emotions controlling me, being able to harness them and recognizing that I do have a dark side. We all do. You know, I think as emancipated, or, you know, as spiritually ascended we may become, we still have that dark side that we can unpack and take out if we need to. Like if we're walking down a dark alley, you know, we probably need to unpack that dark side, right?
Yeah.
So there is this kind of juxtaposition of the dark and the light, and it's about, you know, it's that yin and yang, right? It's that that moment of truth in every minute where you're interacting with people earnestly and honestly, as much as you possibly can. I mean, sometimes there are inhibitions and they still come in, but yeah, it's about, for me, I think most of all, it's about being courageously myself in that moment, whatever that is. I'm trying not to walk in labels all the time, and I detest them myself, you know, but I think sometimes they can be inhibiting. Like Sarah said, you know, they're not always a good thing. And I struggled so much with what to call myself as a practitioner, like you did, because I don't like being in boxes. If there's one thing about me, I don't like being in boxes. And mainly because I don't fit into them. I've always struggled fitting into boxes. You know, when you've got to go online or fill out a form about something, and it's like, you know, it's just a multiple choice type thing. I always struggled to fit myself anywhere, and that has just been a repeating theme throughout my life. So I think for me, you know, being at my core authentic self, it's adventure, it's spontaneity, it's freedom, and it's truth. But most importantly, I've realized through life that every time I have tried to live a little 2.4 life, like just be a mum, you know, just have kids, just, you know, white picket fence, my life has completely collapsed in on itself. And so for me, my mission, what I do with my work, you can't extricate me from that. That is my core. That is why I'm here personally. And for other people, it's other things. But for me, I've realized that as soon as I veer away from that And there is a part of me that gets lazy and is like, oh, but I just want to, you know, flounce about and frolic in the woods and not work. But, you know, then I'm always brought back to when I do that for too long, I don't feel myself. I feel like I've lost some part of me. And so I have to get, you know, serious about my mission and my calling again, because you can't extricate that from me.
I love that. It's interesting. So we've got quite a few different comments coming in. Sarah's saying, first of all, like the weather, love it.
Sarah, you and I are going to get on so well. We need to do that podcast.
Yeah. Sarah's saying, I've been working with Rosanna, and this is where I started to find myself after being at rock bottom. That's a lovely endorsement of how great you are. Gary saying, try not to be hard on yourself on your journey. When you're making a journey with no map, you're bound to take the wrong turn now and then. Yeah, I like that. I think that's something that I've been learning quite a lot, actually, Gary. Is just the power of compassion that we have for ourselves. It's really, I've always been quite hard on myself and quite bitching, you know, in a way that I just wouldn't be for anyone else at all. I think Viv's saying exactly. I don't know if that's about the chocolate or not, but who knows? Susie's saying Toll's Power of Now was a challenging read all those years ago. Should try it again. But lots of him on YouTube. He lived up the road in Vancouver near UBC. I heard about him via Oprah. Carl is actually writing a book at the moment called The Power of Now, which is no in Portugal, in Portuguese, because anyone living in Portugal as an expat will realize you'll get a load of nows. When you're trying to sort things out. He's such a comedian. Bob is saying, at that time, now my now was completely unbearable, deep depression. But I was so good at masking, even the professionals I sought help from didn't recognize how depressed I was. That's an interesting one, actually, Bob. And I wonder what it was that helped it all to be cracked wide open. But, you know, like, was it you, or was it somebody else that helped you to see that you were depressed? I think, yeah, I'd like to know more about this, if that's okay.
Yeah, me too.
Robin saying it's being open and honest. So many are unable to see the wood for the trees. Absolutely. Julian saying, hello all, had something else. So now doing my catch up on double speed. Haha, didn't want to miss this one. Bless you. It's a good question, isn't it, Gillian? I'm sure you've got some deep insights there as well. Robin saying, and knowing when the dark side can be used for your own good. I like that comment.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying really is giving us permission to be ourselves and not to be angry, like or fed up or disappointed in ourselves. I recognize it's interesting what you're saying about dark versus light, because obviously the brighter you shine, you're going to be casting shadows. And that's not to say that the shadows are belonging to everyone else, but you're going to be casting shadows, but they are still part of the energy of you. You know, those shadows are connected to you. Like, you know, when you're walking down the street and you've got a shadow, like if you lift your foot up, the shadow comes with you. Like the shadow is always there.
Yeah.
So like we own it. How comfortable are we to dive into our shadows? It's quite uncomfortable. I remember at the start of all the COVID stuff, and I'm sure you've been through something similar, but learning some of the things going on in the world. And I remember being really, really shocked and not being able to identify with some of the shit that other people I saw doing, and thinking that I was somehow not above it all, but I was so disgusted by what I was learning. And in that disgust was a big dollop of, hang on a second. Let's have a bit of a deeper look, Louisa, shall we? And let's move on. We've got more comments coming in, and so I think we're just going to have to keep coming back to them. But when knowing when the dark side can be used for your own good, how's that been helpful for you? What have you learned, Rosanna?
I've learned that boundaries and assertiveness are so important, because in order to walk in our, as much as possible, our authentic truth, we also have to have that assertiveness to protect ourselves, and we need to set up boundaries. And so sometimes you've got the choice to be unpalatable to some people, because you have to preserve yourself, and it's it's all well and good to want to be the person who fills up other people's cups and offers them up freedom, and in the form of this transformation, which is essentially about peeling off the layers that were put on you by society and family and culture. So it's not that we recreate ourselves. It's not even that we create ourselves. It is that we peel off these layers. And as we peel off the layers, that we do see this shadow side. And it's hard to look at. It's as hard to look at as the light within us. Sometimes the light within us shines too brightly as well. So I think...
Could you give me no, I'm not trying to like pry. Well, I am trying to pry.
Yeah, pry. Go pry. Let me get.
Can you give me because I really like the what you're saying about being okay with being unpalatable. I hold my hand up and say it's actually one of my biggest fears is being unpalatable, and it's something that I like work on, because I realize I can't be very truthful. Unless my truth is that I love everyone. And the truth is that's not true. I aspire to love everyone. But I also do have thoughts, like real thoughts about people, real discernments. And sometimes I really like people. Sometimes I don't want to be around them anymore. And I make a very clear choice. But like being unpalatable is an issue for me, which actually blows up so much more in my face than if I were to just be really unreasonable or whatever it is I fear being. So can you give me an example of like when you've done that, even though it might have been difficult, and what you learned from that? I'm just trying to kind of conceptualize it, make it a bit easier for other people as well.
Sure. So I'll give an example of when I work with a client. So it's all driven by love, right? But then love isn't always squishy and they're there and telling people what they want to hear. Sometimes the best love that you can donate to somebody is the truth, and it's tough love sometimes. I've worked with clients before, and that I'll say to them, well, for instance, yesterday someone said, as part of my Wellbeing membership, you have a Telegram chat group, and I opened it up to Q&A for about 2 hours, and I said, if anyone wants to ask a question that's been on their mind, I'm available, Q&A. And I had a couple come in, and one of the first questions that I got asked was, how can I increase my intuition? And so I answered that one. I said, and at the end, I put a caveat and said, and if you're going to do these exercises, because I gave some examples, I gave some foundational principles, and then I gave some examples of how it could be applied in a practical way. And then I put a caveat and said, look, if you're going to go down this road, then be prepared to take action on the intuitive guidance that you get, because every time you dumb down that and you refuse to take that guidance, it shrinks.
Yeah.
Well, that's my personal opinion. So I then had a client say, well, I do listen to my my guidance and I do love following it, blah, blah, blah. However, in this circumstance, I have an instinct to do X, Y, Z. However, it's not practical for whatever reason, X, Y, Z, right? And I know this individual really well. I've done some deep diving transformational coaching with this person. And I sat there and I just thought, how do I answer this? Because I knew exactly how I wanted to answer it. And then I tempered it. And I gave a response that was very open and frank. But at the same time, I knew that it would be slightly to the bone. But in that instance, there was nothing else that I could do. I had to walk my authentic truth. And I had to give the answer that resonated most for me in that instance. But polite as I was, I also recognized that it was a bitter pill. And sometimes a bitter pill, you don't want to swallow it, right? But that's on that person, because sometimes we project things onto other people. And I think also when something's written in text, you can put a certain inflection on it and take it in a way that it wasn't meant.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a little bit on the edge, it felt a bit edgy to me and I was uncomfortable with it. But at the same time, I had to go with the authentic response. But yeah, it was unpalatable to me, because afterwards I was a bit like, God, it felt sometimes we've got to say things. We don't have to. We have the choice to say things that feel uncomfortable. And sometimes it can bring up, concerns for us. But I'm very much, I'm not here to pander to people. I'm not, if they're going to work with me, then they are interested in attaining their highest good and becoming their best self. And I don't penny pinch with my words or my time.
I love how you said that. I don't penny pinch.
I will. There's been times where I've said to clients, I don't think you're ready to work with me, or I'm not the practitioner to work with you, and that's hard too, and there's one particular incident in the last 6 months where I was really on the fence about. I started working with somebody and I was like, oh, I'm not sure I'm equipped for this. Like there was some moments where I was like almost said, you know what, I don't think this is going to work out. And I think if I'd had known somebody, if I had faith and trust in somebody who could do what I could do, which I haven't yet found. I'm not saying that they're not out there, but I do some very specific spiritual clearings and cleansings and stuff. And I haven't met anyone. I haven't worked with anyone who I trust enough to offload a client to. So I did end up pursuing it. And actually, they've ended up being the most amazing client I've ever had. And the progress that they've made has been exponential. But we did have some very, very tricky conversations. And now, in hindsight, reviewing that, I don't think we could have got there unless I had been so edgy.
Yeah.
Unless I'd been like, I'm prepared to let you go, and they knew it. I think sometimes people really respect that, because I think we live in a world where people are like, employ me, give me work, I'll take it on no matter what, and this person realized, oh, she's not just about the money. Do you know what I mean? Yes, she needs money to live and feed her kids and blah blah blah, but it's not just about that. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I mean that's a great and very relevant example, because I mean a lot of time we take on work that because we need money, and then we realize, hang on, maybe I don't know. I realized that I had a client that I took on a while ago, and something about them kind of jarred with me. And I just thought it was, I kind of chided myself and said, oh, you should be a bit more open-minded, or whatever it was that I, turned in on myself. And months later, not many months later, I realized why I couldn't be working with them. And, it's funny, because like what you're sharing with me about, it is showing up in so many different ways at the moment, in terms of who I talk to on the shows, how I look after the cats. Like we've got quite a few cats at the moment. We've got 3, and I think one of them, she's a girl and she was a stray, and we've been trying to sort her out. She appears to be living with us, and it appears that we need to get her spayed, and it's really, really expensive. And she buggers off, and so she's not really our cat, and then she is, and then she's not. And I just realized if we don't take action, there's going to be kittens everywhere. And so I was just trying to find out if there was any funding to have like a obvious stray, to get a little bit of money back, so we don't have to pay for the whole cost. We didn't really want another cat, but she's arrived. She's decided we're for her. And in the whole conversation, I realized that we could be eligible for some support, but only if we behaved in a way that didn't really feel accurate or honest about who we were. There were a couple of different things for us to meet the criteria, and it just didn't sit well. And we've now, made a completely different decision because we realized it didn't sit well. But thankfully, I'd had another didn't quite sit well example just earlier in the day, and another didn't quite sit well. So at the moment, we're getting quite a few different nudges of things that don't sit well. We've got the opportunity to make a difference, make a different choice. And one of the things that I learned when I got together with Carl, he shared with me this book called, what's it called? Radical Honesty, by Bob Blanton. And he was really into it. He was so into it. He bought loads of copies that he gave to people, which I have to say really bombed, because people hate being given books. Like, when you get given free advice.
Especially when they're personal development books. It's a bit like giving someone, some lovely bath salts or some bubble bath bombs. What are you trying to say? I'm
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Am I not good enough for you?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like giving people unsolicited advice. I mean, he just loved the book and believed in it. Yeah. Anyway, we got together, and we got together in quite a hurry. I was pregnant very quickly, and it all felt very authentic. It all felt very real. And then Carl brings this book out and says, I think we should do all the exercises in it. To like really get, because like the key premise is that we can be radically honest, but we stick around to clear up the mess. And so he had these exercises for couples to do. And they could have been really like disastrous. Like it was a very high risk strategy that we entered into. So one of the I think one of them was just like being completely naked around each other, not a problem. It was all about getting rid of shame, getting rid of blame and judgment, and kind of just being really nakedly authentic and being around. But we had to talk about every single sexual partner we'd had, how it happened, what we had done, when it was, how it had occurred, just everything. And we spent a whole weekend together talking, not necessarily about this. And then we had to also admit like whether we'd fibbed to our partner since we'd been together. And the thing was, I'd been seeing somebody else, and I'd made up a little bit of I wasn't quite fully disclosed about something when we got together. And it wasn't anything really big, but there was some aspect of shame that I felt, or embarrassment, and I told a little fib. And coming out and clearing it up and being really authentically honest, I was so afraid, because I was already pregnant and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose him. And the great thing was, actually, we learned to trust each other so much more. It was such a terrifying experience. I'm talking about Bob Blanton.
All right. Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Hello, Carl.
He said, oh yeah, right, what a bastard. But it was really, really good. Brad Blanton. Yeah, not Bob Blanton. Brad Blanton. Thank you, Carl. It was a really, really worthwhile experience. And it gave us the opportunity to practice these skills quite a lot. And then if we fall out, or when we fall out, more accurately, because we are quite, we're navigating everything with 3 children and 5 pets and 2 businesses and living in another country. We're going to fall out quite a bit. There's always going to be like little things that knock us off our perch. And in the navigation of it, it gives us a chance to be completely honest and completely share every single resentment with each other, and like the other person listen, but then stick around to clear up the mess. And we've got into the practice of it, and it's given us a lot of trust. But I realize I don't feel necessarily that I can trust everyone in my life to the same level as I do with Carl, where I can give him absolute, this is the honest to God, absolute, I'm not going to try and sugar pill this and sugarcoat it, nothing. This is exactly how I am. And what occurs to me is it's a lack of trust. We grow up in a way where we don't trust each other. It takes a lot to be completely authentic. You have to trust that people are either going to stick around to listen to you and share your life with you, Rosanna, or maybe trust that they're not going to. A lot of people won't put themselves in that very vulnerable position. So I really honor you for that.
I think key to note, there's something specific I want to ask you.
Yeah, go on.
About what you were saying. But first,
Yeah,
I want to say the key to note about that is that there will always be people out there that you can't trust. It's part of being human, and we're all changing, and we all have our own triggers, and sometimes we're not in control of them. And so we have the choice to get ourselves to the point whereby we can know, by reviewing our lives and seeing everything that we've gone through in our lives, oh, I got through this, I got through this, I got through this, blah, 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 down the line. And so it goes. And then you realize, actually, I am fine. I've been fine. I overcame that. And if I overcame all of this, I can be fine again. So no matter what other people do, that I might be down for a little bit, but I'll always get back up again. And so reminding yourself in those moments where it's, I don't know if I can trust, or I feel this discernment and I don't know how far I can trust them, but maybe I can trust them in this area, but maybe not that area. But knowing that we can't control others, but we can control how we respond to them. Those aren't my words. I got them from somewhere, but I'm not very good at remembering names.
No, it's fine.
So forgive me. I'd love to name drop here and say that was so and so.
I got the author of the book I was talking about. I got his name wrong. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, knowing that we can be okay no matter what, because it's about going back to the tools that help us to be okay. If we've got those tools, and if we've got through things in the past, then we have, because otherwise how would we have got out of them? And we can utilize them again. So yeah, can you trust everybody? No. There's, you know, I have a very small inner circle, and I keep it that way because I like it that way. It's less for me to deal with. Being a single mum, you know, I can't let myself go down too many wormholes. So yeah, that's self-care and protection. That
is definitely self-care. I really liked what you said about in terms of taking on all the jobs, you know, not having that discernment. Before I met Carl, actually, I had found myself in a place of sort of intense dating. I'd given myself 6 months off, where I said, no men, no nothing, no swaying. I just want to be in my own body. And then it was like, no, I'm ready. And at that time I was in my mid 30s, and I'd go on a date with somebody and think, potential. And, you know, might go on another date and another date whilst making up my mind. Actually, what happened was I was like, yeah, you're nice, but I've just spent 6 months on my own. I really enjoy it. You're not for me. And so it was really easy for me to just say, thank you, but I won't be seeing you again. a bit like an audition, you know, for X-Men or something. And I'd never been like that before. Before I was like, oh, you know, a bit like somebody who wants jobs, you know, and saying, please pick me. And I was, I'd put myself in this place almost like of desperation, where I thought, you know, I'm in my mid 30s, you know, I'll never meet a partner or whatever. And that was really important to me. But actually, what I realized quite quickly was the more discerning I was, the more I was able to say, had a great time, thank you. Or actually, that wasn't for me. Or I had a terrible time, I never want to see you again. The quicker I was able to do that, the better the next date was. And it's like choosing in action. And I recognize you were saying about how you could be changeable like the weather. You know, you are kind of reinventing yourself or re-knowing yourself in every single moment. And of course, every time you do that, that's communicating something very authentic about you. So everyone that's for you can find you. They can hone in on you because you're like a beacon of whatever it is.
Love
of
that.
you-ness. And of course, you know, like when I was just like, oh yeah, you'll do, or yeah, I'll spend some time with you. Like, where's the uniqueness? Where's your energy? It's kind of really homogenized. It's nothing special. But when you're like, no, it really communicates something at quite a psychic level.
It does, and it communicates to the universe, right? The universe loves a vacuum.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you say no, you keep that space open. There's no placeholder. If the placeholder is there, you know, that person that might have been somebody who would really resonate for you, you know, light you up like a pinball machine, is going to be, you know, may well be unlikely to come in if they see a placeholder, right?
Yeah.
More
especially
often than not.
especially a placeholder that doesn't really represent who you really are. I mean, it's off-putting, isn't it? I love that. You said you had something you wanted to ask me.
Oh, yes. So going back to this, what was his name? Brad
Blanton. Yeah.
Blanton. I was fake Blanchett.
And the and the relationship challenges. Woo.
Yeah. So when you were saying about, you know, coming to these points where you practice being completely open and honest with each other when things are going awry or whatever's happening, and you have those moments where it's like, I need you to know this, because if you don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said then you're in shame and guilt about something because you're not authentic. Was that right?
Yeah, like I think his core premise of the book is the whole world is nuts. He'd been working as some kind of psychoanalyst and healer and whatnot for years and years and years, and he just realized that at the core of everything was shame, guilt, blame, anger, resentment, and dishonesty. Like when he looked at it all, he was just like, it's just dishonesty. And so he went on this massive kick. It's quite funny actually, if you do a search for him on YouTube, Brad Blanton, senator or something like that. He tried to become a senator or some like local position of authority in America. And so in the area where he was, the local journalists like cracked onto the fact that he was going to be honest, even if it was going to like trip him up. Okay. And so people like all these channels sent out these journalists to say, so Brad, tell me, have you ever been unfaithful? And he was like, yeah, I was unfaithful with my first wife, my second wife, you know, etc. Have you ever done drugs? And rather him saying just yes, he was like, yes, I did acid, I did this, and when I did this, I learned this. And he was just absolutely really you know, and so he kept being asked all these questions to kind of rubbish his experience. Actually, I thought he came across as really great. Then somebody asked one of his team, would you vote for him? And of course they were all honest as well, and they said, actually no, he's really difficult. It's so funny. I mean, he stands for the truth, even you know, even though most other people don't. And that's the difficulty, I guess, is he stands for the truth and it is uncomfortable, and he sticks around to have those conversations, but other people don't. You know, and you run the risk of that.
It's easier to run, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it was really great. That's kind of how it works. Go on.
So my question was, in those moments where, presumably in that moment where you feel like you need to speak your truth, there's something awry with you, right? You're feeling uncomfortable and unbalanced. So do you immediately go to Carl, or do you withdraw for a bit, like to your woman cave, whatever that might be for you, and then go?
I normally find out what I'm thinking. I normally try to connect in with what I'm feeling before going to. But the funny thing is one of the offshoots of us playing with this, and I say playing with it because we're not good at it. We practice it, we have a bit of fun with it, but and we're not like the perfect couple, but like we are in the right. I'm in the right marriage for me, and I think he'll say the same. I hope you do. Every year on our anniversary, we say, yeah, we'll carry on, we'll stay married. You know, we do review it because I think that gives us a chance to say, actually, you're not really up to scratch. You know?
this and this.
It's like an open dialogue, and we like it that way. But one of the offshoots is sometimes I might get really mad about something, and I'll talk to him. And I've built it up in my head because of private conversations I've had with myself, remembrances of how my mum and dad's arguments went when I was a kid, and that actually it wasn't safe to be really honest and open. And so I would ascribe judgment and blame to some of the views I might have about him. I would also be judging and blaming myself. And so by the time all this kind of truth comes out, sometimes there's sarcasm and all sorts attached to it, and we look at each other, and then I realize as I said it, and he looks at me, and like what we've learned is not to take it too personally, because when it comes out, everything sounds quite personal.
Yeah.
But we've given our, like, this whole, like, Brad Blanton thing has given us a bit of space to actually laugh about it, because we realize, like, this, it's conditioned in us to have loads of attitudes and upsets and blames and shames, and sort of like a cultural, there's like, we're stepping out of the cultural narrative when you're doing that. And so, yeah, we're going to slip up. We're not always going to be very, very finessed in it. And sometimes, you know, it could blow up and it might take us a lot longer to sort out. But mostly, if we mess up, we sort it out quite quickly. And we normally end up laughing about it. Really
Are there times where you've withdrawn to consider and recalibrate and then thought, actually, it's not him, it's me projecting onto him?
Oh, totally. I mean, that's nearly every single outcome. And it's so funny because on the show on Friday, like Sarah said, what did she say? Oh yeah, it's okay to let people off the hook. And so her and her husband, and so Sarah, if you're listening and I paraphrase this incorrectly, please do put in what you see as the truth. But I made a little short of it because I thought it was quite funny, but she said, you know, it's okay for us both to say, you know what, I'm tired of this, I realize this is going nowhere, let's just let this go. Let's just completely let it go and never go back to it. Not in a kind of when we're burying it, but actually as an act of goodness. Like, let's just let this go as an act of generosity. And so Carl said to me, hey, let's just let everything, I'm going to let you off the hook, which made me laugh. And I said, okay, I'm going to let you off the hook. And he said, I'm going to let you off the hook for the whole relationship. And I was like, all of a sudden, I said, no way. I realized I've got some like hidden resentments, and we just fell about laughing. It's kind of fun. So yeah, the whole, like, the more you practice it, I guess, the more you can like have a sense of humor, because you realize that your blame, shames, guilts, and angers, you know, underneath it, I mean, they're all just showing up because we lack trust, or we fear, or we're conditioned into fear. We've got memories of it going wrong. And so we just created a bit of an opening. I couldn't have done this with my ex, I don't think.
That's a sign that you're with someone who's really right for you. I'm really curious, like, do you feel that, you know, your relationship with Carl and his with you enables you both to be on a journey where, or more so on a journey where you're becoming your best selves, and do you keep each other accountable? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the real sort of like definition for us. I think once we stop being able to continuously become who we are meant to be, that's really when the relationship will end. Like, you know, there's no sense of settling. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, like, if one of us really wants something, we'll do it. And we'll talk about it. Yeah. Like,
there's something that strikes me, like, we're
our
talking
truth
about
is the most
who are
important.
we?
Yeah.
Who are we at our core? You know, why are we here? Blah, blah, blah. When you're joining two lives together, it strikes me, and I've never managed to achieve it. But, you know, I'm always in awe of people who make it work, because, you know, that it's just so much more complicated, isn't it? Sometimes it's hard enough to know what I want, let alone incorporating that into a coupledom and what that other person wants, and how do we fit together, and what if what I want doesn't resonate for them, and what if we're at an impasse where I'm here and they're there, and then it goes like this, and, you know, we're not kind of connecting, and you know, how do you navigate that in those moments where there must have been moments in your relationship with Carl where he wanted to do something and you really didn't, and you know, what happened? How did you come back?
I mean, I held resentments for ages about it.
Was it a case of he did it anyway and then you followed, or how did it?
I mean, I've lost him. I lost her. Hello, I lost him. You're a girl. No, it's funny. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's been a challenge. It's been a workout, Rosanna. I feel really blessed to have him in my life, because I've gone through the greatest level of change that I've ever been through in my relationship with him. And I think it's a flipping miracle that people do stay together. And I think life these days gives us the chance to separate as well. Like, you know, we have got the choice. A lot of people are able to be in a relationship and realize actually it's not working. Time to leave. One thing that Carl said to me early on in our relationship, which I thought was really off at the start, was I could have made it work with my exes. And essentially, like, when you're with a woman, they are like almost representing woman, like the whole of femininity. I didn't quite understand it. But I realize actually we've learned companionship, and it's also very good that we love each other as well. But we've learned a companionship that I think I could have applied with my ex, and we probably could have made it work. But I don't think I'd have had the skills to navigate my truth and what I needed, and I don't think I'd have got my needs met very well. But we could have made it work. But yeah, we have our ups and downs. We have had some very big highs and some very massive lows, and there've been times when I thought, okay, I've had enough. But we've always managed to bring ourselves back from that. And we've
What
always.
is it in those moments where you thought, I've had enough? Was it compromise that grated you? Did you feel at those moments that you were compromising self?
I don't know, because every different example, every different situation is like every time we might grate on each other, it's usually for a different reason, and there might be some underlying cause. I guess what's become more evident to me is that we know more about what's at our core now, and that most things that irritate us on the surface, like, it'll be like something I guess it's something core that comes up, and it's like, am I able to be free? Am I able to be who I want to be? And it just kind of works. But it's taken me to, like, I guess each time we go deeper, I think this could be so deep that it ends us. You know, so it's like I have to trust that everything is going to work out, and trust that whatever happens is right for both of us. And it's like I've got more trust in both of us living authentically, and that has to happen, that it just works. And one day it might not work, but it does right now. And we're very lucky. But I do think it's a bit of witchcraft as well. I don't know how it's happened. And I don't think it makes me any better, because, you know, when I look at my first relationship, which I was in for ages, it wasn't very authentic at all. You know, so, you know, I grew up, you know, with parents who stayed together, and I can see they love each other, and yet they've had some very, very deep and very sort of like deep core value incompatibilities, I would say. And I never really wanted to live like that, and I'm very fortunate that I don't have to.
Do you think having similar values and beliefs has served you guys?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, that was a big sort of like issue with me and my ex. You know, like, we didn't really have the same shared values, and you know, that's hard, because, you know, like, you come out of who you are, be around somebody else's values, and like the whole subject here, like, who am I, what should I be doing, why am I here? It's I think the core values underpins that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's why this topic's so important, because until you know who you are, what you are, why you're here, what lights you up, what brings you joy, what brings you peace, what, you know, just what makes you feel alive, and what type of person you feel comfortable around, and what you admire and what you respect in another person. Until you know all those things, how can you be prosperous in a connection with somebody else? Because we're all always changing, but it needs to start from somewhere, right? And core values and beliefs are less likely to change over time once they're, you know, set at certain age.
I mean, one thing I would say is we haven't actually got more prosperous. We have very recently, but in our relationship, if anything, we've like dived into what it would be like to not be prosperous. We've explored a lot of that, and a lot of what about us might trip us up and make us not successful. And we've explored all the how not tos to find what has worked for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna have to wrap this up in a sec, but we've had so many comments coming in. I just can't even.
Yeah, let's have a look at those.
But I can see Carl is here, so let me just. We are being as authentic as we can be at each moment. Some want to play the game of more, some don't. Right? Yeah, and often when there's an issue, I have to say it's often me that that gets my knickers in a twist about something, and yeah, it's fun. And when Carl gets like shirty, we found a way to like laugh about it. Gillian saying there's great power in being close to another in knowing ourselves. The mirror is there if we choose to look. I seem to carry a very harsh inner mirror without the outer mirror. Oh. Carl. Bob is saying maybe not lucky, Louisa, perhaps intentional. Thank you. That's kind. I do love the way you, Louisa, and by inference, Carl, share so openly. Thanks. How many good role models of intimate relationships do any of us have to access? Thanks for being one of them. Sarah saying, Robin, so true. I need to go in actual order. I was actually reading them from the bottom up. let's go back to some of the older ones. Okay. So this is great. Sarah saying, what if not fitting into boxes is a superpower? And I think that's great. I love that.
I think that's true. I agree with that. Well, 100%.
Yeah. Gary saying, one of the most disastrous times of my life was when I lost the value of being me and tried to change my core values. And there we go, core values. Because I'd considered myself, it had no value and wasn't working. Indeed, I wasn't being authentic, not something I would try again, but a lesson that taught me that strength lies within. Robin saying not fitting into a box is empowering. Yeah, I would say so. Ditto Bob. I was depressed, yet therapist didn't put me in hospital. I was barely functioning, but they didn't see it. That's really hard. Best of twos. Carl is saying what we really are is deeply hidden in these times. The effect or consequence ranges from maladaptation to trauma, and it takes a long time to grow up or realize the truth of our being when born into a conspiracy of ignorance. Keep going, friends. Bless you. I love that. I agree. The mask I had was super glued until now. I never realized. Isn't it lovely that everyone is, recognizing where they've worn a mask and how can we let it go? Susie saying, what flipped my mind reading a post, be careful what you think or it may come true. I snapped out of my depression with those words. My thinking is careful now.
We have to guard our thoughts, otherwise we can end up down the bottom of a well.
Yes. Yes, Carl, for me, a dear friend who knew my situation realized it was a brain chemistry issue at the core affecting my processing. GABA, a natural amino acid relating neurotransmitters, this is part 1 of 2, was lacking. Most people take it to help them sleep. For me, it slowed my brain down enough. I could think and process, begin the cognitive ability to live and now thrive. Fantastic. Robin saying the power of the word no after years of agreeing and doing what work and society demanded. The word no has made me unpalatable as I realize I do not conform and will be me.
Love it.
Getting some rebels here. Love it. Sarah saying, as an infinite being, we can be any energy, and sometimes it's required for the situation. It might be required for someone to get the message to hear you and back off. Intense energy. And also trust that we can handle whatever situation comes up. Nobody wants you to sugarcoat anything. The bitter pill is often needed to induce the correct thinking. So true. The truth is needed. So there's so many people really loving this. Thank goodness for people who like edgy. Gillian's saying, I'm a rubbish liar. Even if I say the words, my face tells it all. And I tend to be blunt as a brick. The best thing for me is to shut my mouth. And that has its own challenges. Okay, this is Sagittarian hour, isn't it? Because like both Rosanna and I are born on the same day, and Gillian's also Sagittarian. Sarah is saying trust is important. I'm 50 and only start to be my authentic truth and the person I have wanted all my life because the work with Rosanna has opened my mind and heart. Beautiful. Truth with kindness. The hardest person to let off the hook has been myself. So glad I learned how to do that. You know what, Bob? Last time you said that, I think I cried on the show. Or you said something very similar. I think you said the hardest person to forgive was yourself. And bless you. Nice one, Bob. He's getting some congratulations and things, and hugs and whatnot. Robin is saying relationships are about listening, communicating, and trusting, communication and understanding, and knowing when to shut up.
I love that.
I think we're up to date now.
Yeah, you said that one before.
We are being as authentic. Yeah, me, Shirty. Thank you all. Okay. In relationship, if I don't like who I am when I'm with that person, they're not for me. And that,
oh God, I wholeheartedly agree with that.
That is absolutely how I feel about Carl. Like, I know I'm in the right relationship because I like the person that I am. And I think, it's the same for both of us. And when I look at my past relationships, I realize I wasn't me. And the same goes for families and countries. Like, when I was in England, I didn't feel like I could be me. And everywhere I go, if I don't feel like I'm me and I don't like being me, then I know something needs to shift. That's so
environment. It's such a big part of it, I think. Not just about the country that you live in, but the space, your home space, your neighbors, the area. It's so conducive to, how we present, because it informs how we feel, our emotions,
Absolutely. So have you got any final thoughts for today, Rosanna, on who am I, what should I be doing, why am I here?
It's hard, isn't it? Because we've talked about so much today. And it's just got so many tendrils that go into so many different things. Summing up, I love what Sarah said about, if you don't like who you are when you're with someone, go somewhere else. Well, I'm adding that little bit on the end. Go somewhere else. Because, if you lose yourself, what have you got? If you lose your focus or your vision or the trajectory of where you're going by being with someone else, then that can be so damaging to self. And then you feel like you're at sea. There's been so many relationships that I've been in where I've had to let them go in the end, simply because they would disrupt my mission. And I said very early on in this chat that you can't extricate me from my mission. If you interfere with my mission, you're gone. You're out.
What is your mission? Just let us know that really clearly.
As that.
What is your mission?
So there's a passage in Ezekiel about the bones, and about 30 years ago, when I was a Christian goer in a church, I received this download to go and look in the Bible and find this passage. I should remember. I'm not the best memory. It's getting better every day. I should remember what scripture it is, but I don't remember the number. But anyway, it's in Ezekiel. It's all about the bones. It's all about putting flesh on the bones, freeing the people, blah blah blah, being led by Spirit and God to do that. And that's what I do. And if anyone interferes with that, then it doesn't happen. Like, for instance, if I was staying with someone at this hotel, and we had an argument before the podcast, they'd be gone. Like, no, it's not happening. Right. And that's what I mean. It's like that is my rudder, the rod in my spine. It's like if someone breaks that we haven't got legs.
Okay. Very cool. So, very clear mission there.
Yeah. So my advice for everyone: find that one thing that's important to you, to that extent, if there is one. And for some people, it is just getting married and having kids, and that's the end and be all for them, and that's their mission, right?
Yeah. I think that is a mission for so many people, isn't it?
And that's cool. That's amazing. There was a massive part of me that just wanted that. There's so many times I've been like, God, can you just give this to someone else. I don't want to do it. Like, you know, I go live on TikTok all the time with tarot readings, and I didn't want to come out as a psychic. I didn't want to tell people I was psychic. I didn't want to tell people I could read tarot. It was like a closed thing that I would kind of bring through the back door with clients after they'd worked with me 6 or 7 or 8 times. And then God went, no, I want you on TikTok. I want you going live, and I want you going live with readings. And I was like, I don't want to do this. But, you know, it's if I'm not following the spirit and you know, going back to what I said earlier about that client that I had, you know, if I'm not following my internal guidance, then everything starts collapsing in on itself. So I don't even dare risk it anymore, because I've just discovered that's a big part of me being me.
Excellent. It was so funny when you mentioned, you know, I had a really great example of somebody saying, "Oh my God, no" to kids yesterday. Like, we were shopping, and our youngest was having a massive strop. Our other two were kind of okay. This was at the end of our really long walk. So, you know, fair play, the kids were playing up a bit. And we had this lovely Brazilian girl who was serving us, and Brazilians are really family orientated, and, you know, they're really like love children and stuff. And I said something like in Portuguese, like, "Oh, kids, eh?" And she went, and I said, "Have you got them?" And she went, "Oh, dear God, no, I'm so happy." We fell about laughing. It's not for everyone. Anyway, thank you to everybody that's joined us today. It's been great. We've had loads of interaction. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts. I do think these things are co-created, you know, so the more you put in, the more comes out, and the more we have to play with and have fun with. Last couple of comments coming in are from Robin, saying, "Oh, still more. I'm the black sheep in my family because I don't conform, but I love who I am. I know I'm happy with who I am." Sarah's saying, "Calling out oppression." And Robin is saying, "Brilliant show. Thank you." Thank you so much for joining us. Join us another day. We're talking about grief tomorrow with Rick Purcell. We've got other things on Thursday and Friday. So just to reiterate, Monday, Tuesday, we have a break. Then Thursday and Friday, you'll find us on this channel at 10:05. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you wherever you are in the world. Have a great rest of day, rest of week, and we'll catch you real soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
And thanks, Rosanna.
You're welcome. Thank you for